Happy Monday, everyone. My name is Greg Dixon. I'm here with Margo Arrowsmith, the creator of Your Perfect Retirement Living. And today she's going to talk about a little bit of a tricky topic: family relationships, personal choice, and agency. So, what do you have in mind, Margo?
Well, I'm going to start out by saying, and we all going to recognize this, I am resolute. You, Greg, and all the people watching are stubborn. And that person over there, that person's just pigheaded. That is something we tend to do. What we're doing in our minds makes sense. If the other person isn't doing what we want them to do, we tend to see them as being stubborn. And of course, that person over there, the two of us can discuss how that person's way over the edge. Okay. And I hadn't thought about that in a while, but recently I had somebody tell me about they're trying to get their parent to do what they want. The kids are. They want the parent to go to independent living, assisted living. Parent doesn't want to. Well, she's always been stubborn. Really? You're not being stubborn by wanting her to go. Okay. I'm going to say out front, I know that there are times there's such a thing as Alzheimer's, and people get it. Rarely, but people get it. There are dementia symptoms, which could be all sorts of things, from a UTI to drug interactions, and I mean the list goes on. So sometimes there are people who need some help. However, even in the 90s, at the age of 90, I think it's like 8% of people get serious dementia-related diseases, which means that 91% of the people who are in their 90s don't have it. Okay? So my question then is, my challenge to you is, you need to look at why it is that you want your parent to do what you want them to do, and which one of you is being stubborn. I'm going to top it off with a story. I think I've told this one before. If you're a regular fan, you've heard it. But I had a woman call me, and she heard her. This was about 5 years ago. Her mother was at a lovely it's kind of assisted living, independent living hybrid, and it really was a nice place. But her mother was depressed. She after dad died, the woman sold her mother's house, put her in this beautiful place. She called me up. Mom's depressed. I don't get it. You need to go over there and fix it. So I go over there, and I got to tell you, it took me about 5 minutes to realize Mom wasn't depressed at all. Mom was pissed off. And you know who she was pissed off at. Okay. Well, we met for a few weeks. She was actually a lovely lady. If she'd stayed in her own home, which she wanted to do, she would have needed some help. She would have needed a gardener for sure, maybe a housekeeper. She probably could have done her own cooking, because she didn't go to any of the 3 meals that her facility offered. But she was angry for being there. Everything had been sold out from under her, including her friends, by the way, and neighbors she'd lived with for decades. So I saw her a few times, and then she said, well, this is nice and all, but I don't really need this. And I couldn't help but agree. I couldn't get her house back for her. 3 more times the daughter called wanting me to go back, and the same thing happened every time. I don't want this to happen to you or your parents. I see so many people who are in places and they're so unhappy. And I'm like, well, how'd you get here? Well, the kids wanted me to go, and I didn't want to be stubborn. Okay. Now, I know, by the way, that most people who want what's best for their parents really think they're doing what's best for their parents. Not that I haven't come across people who have some very nefarious reasons. In fact, and I'll tell you this story as briefly as I can, but one case that I had, the son actually just was worried, and he just wanted what was best for his 83-year-old mother. The daughter was nursing a grudge from childhood. And I know that for 2 reasons. One, because the woman, the 83-year-old woman, told me that. And her son, the woman's brother, told me that too. He agreed. Oh, she's just in it because she's mad because of something that happened, 50, 60 years ago. But I am just worried about my mother. And you know what? I believe him. I think from his heart That's what he thought he was doing. I remember saying to him once, however, and this I suggested that perhaps his mother might actually really know what's best for her. And he's like, "No, no." First place, he said, "Well, when she used to tell me what to do all the time, so now I'm telling her what to do." And I looked at him and I said, "Well, yeah, and you were a child when she told you what to do, and she's now very much an adult." Gonna tell you the story briefly. This particular woman was 70 years old. She had never been to college. She decided she wanted to go to college, so she went to college. And by the time she was 80, in her 80th year, she had gotten a PhD. Pretty impressive. Now, the PhD was online, but still very, very impressive. Now, two things happened. When she went to her graduation, she stayed in a cheap motel. That's what she could afford. And she woke up in the morning with bites on her arms, which she photographed, by the way. And she said it was bed bugs. And she kind of put that on Facebook. She said, "Don't go to this hotel. It's got bed bugs." Good for her to tell people, right? And then after she got home, she lived in an big old house that needed a lot of care and needed renovations, etc. So she sold it and bought a modern, newly built condo, which meant that she had a small mortgage. Clearly the mortgage company felt that she could afford it, but the daughter was upset. So the daughter took her to court to get guardianship over her, which basically would mean that from that moment on, the daughter could tell her what to do. Mother would have no rights at all, just as if she were a child again. Now, when the woman was in my office, I'm talking to her for like 10 minutes, and I'm like, this was before I got the whole story, but I'm like, what is going on here? There's nothing wrong with this woman's thinking. She's perfectly cogent, but I did my due diligence. I did my homework. I called the courts in the county that she came from. I talked with the woman who was her guardian ad litem, which is the basically her lawyer for the guardianship procedures. She verified everything the woman told me. Everything the woman told me. They were having her stay with the son so that Duke Neurology could do a 6-month neurological on her, which was totally unnecessary. Like I say, I had her in my office for 10 minutes and I could have told you everything was just fine. Thank you. I got her a lawyer. Lawyers do not throw words around easily. The lawyer called what had happened to her, that basically said her children have kidnapped her. An example of this is when the son used to take her back to her house to get her mail, he would lock her in the car because he knew that once she got out of the car, he could never get her back in it. So he locked her in the car. So kidnapping, yeah, kind of. Okay. Well, some of the people in my office and myself, we're trying to figure out how to help her get away and get home. She finally figured out an escape route of her own. God bless her. Now, and if you think I was being hoodwinked, which the people at Duke kind of thought I was, let me tell you, this all happened a year ago. I contact her frequently. She contacts me frequently. At one point, the reason she had gotten out of her house to go to Duke and then to her son's anyway was because she needed some heart surgery. One of the things that they thought she needed to be taken care of was they didn't think she took that seriously enough, okay? Well, about 3 months after first thing she had to do, excuse me, because her son wouldn't give her any of her clothes back. So the first thing she had to do was get out and go shopping because she needed underwear because her son wouldn't let her have her underwear. But, and about a week later, she said, "You know what's happening?" She says, "The first couple of days, my legs were kind of weak. I had to sit down a lot, but I've been out every day, and every day I feel myself getting stronger because you see, staying at her son's house, sitting there all day, got her weaker. But as she was doing more, she got stronger." Okay. About 4 months in, she texted me and said, "I started having some feelings in my heart." Because, see, remember the kids said using against her that she wasn't taking this seriously enough. She said, so I called my doctor. Doctor said I should rest for a week. So I rested for a week. I spent a whole week. I didn't go out. Then the doctor told me I could go out again. They were wrong about that. She's been gone a year now. She's doing great. I love hearing from her. Every time I hear from her, she's doing something in her church. She's doing something here. She's doing something there. And again, this was a case, which rarely, of the daughter who really had a grudge against her mother and just wanted to do something. By the way, twice Adult Protective Services have been called to her house. She can't not let them come in, because if she doesn't let them come in, they'll use that against her. So she lets them come in. The first time the woman went to the kitchen, do you have enough food? My client opens her pantry. Seeing is believing. That's the word she used. And the one said, wow, you have a lot of food. Notice how that changed. Then she said, well, do you know how to cook the food? So what this woman's habit was to make a lot of food, put it in, casseroles, and then during the week, all she had to do was pop it in a microwave or in the oven. So she opens and shows the woman. Seeing is believing. One time, they actually called the DMV, saying they were concerned about her driving. So the DMV came over. She had to go to them, and they took her out on the road for a test drive. She passed it. Of course, I wasn't surprised, with flying colors. So other than to harass her periodically throughout the year, she unfortunately has not heard from her caring children because they're mad at her. But she's doing great a year later. Now, what breaks my heart the most, this woman that I told you about earlier, whose daughter really thought she was doing the best by selling her mother's house and putting her in this lovely place, and then trying to get her help to get rid of the depression. What breaks my heart is there's so many of you out there. Either you're an older person like myself, and your children think they know what's best for you, or you're a kid who thinks you know what's best for your parents. And all that does, except for rare instances, all that does is break up families, have generations, have parents resent children, children resent parents. And it's really so sad. And it could be helped. One of my very favorite cases, once I had some kids call me. There were 4 kids, and mom and dad were living outside on their own. I think mom and dad were in their mid-80s. Mom had started drinking a bit much, which I'm going to say 40-year-olds have the right to drink as much as they want. If it affects their work, how they work, they could get fired, but nobody can tell them not to drink. And, my kind of radical stance is, well, you know what? 85-year-olds can do that too. Doesn't mean it's good for the 40-year-old, doesn't mean it's good for the 85-year-old. But if a 40-year-old has that right, so does an 85-year-old. But anyway, what had happened was they had gone to a cousin's wedding, and mom got really soused and kind of made a fool of herself. And they were embarrassed, of course, and very concerned that it might have put a damper on the cousin's wedding, which is a shame. It's a shame. So they wanted to know what they could do. But I love these people. They didn't want to take over mom's life, or dad's life for that matter. Matter of fact, one of the 4 kids refused to even come to the meeting. He just thought that was disrespectful. He wouldn't even come. But we met. And what we narrowed it down to is that, mom can drink if she wants. They all agreed. However, you don't want it ruining your family parties or family events. Thanksgiving was coming up. And they did not want to. And again, I love these kids. They did not want to say, well, mom, we're going to drink, but you can't. I think they would have had the right to say that. They didn't want to do it. So what we settled on by working together was what they would do is say, mom, this year we don't want to have a lot of drinking. So we're going to have 1 glass with our meal. And that's the only drinking that any of us are going to do, which was, I think, a real nice way to do it. Now, after that, because it worked out real well, mom was fine. They all had a good time. They told their parents that they had come to meet with me. And a little bit after that, mom and dad, who'd been married like 60 years, started having a little bit of a problem. They were like at each other a little bit about something. I don't even remember what it was. Something fairly mild, but it was unusual for them, so it really bothered them. They came to see me. They came to my office to see me, the two of them. And again, we talked about it. But mind you, the kids did not say go to see her. They decided to come to see me. Anyway, um, and we came up with a plan. And 2 weeks later, the two of them came back and they said, "We did this plan and it worked. We got it straightened out now. We're really doing much better." It doesn't often get settled that easily, I gotta say. But here's the deal, the bottom line. As you know, in my course, Your Perfect Retirement Living, the whole idea is that you, the older person, or your parents, if you're the younger person, get to decide where they want to live, and then we help them do it in the best way possible. Um, we help them learn about what's available. We help them learn about themselves and what they really want, not what they think they should want. And we help them learn how to talk to salespeople, what questions to ask, what to look for, all that stuff. Great. I mean, it's a great course. Save hundreds of thousands of dollars in some cases, at least a few thousand in all cases, and people have better lives for for taking the course. That's why I did it. But the one of the other things that I offer and a service that I offer is I also do consulting. Now this is separate, but I do consulting in family issues. If somebody has the course, they, of course, can go to the Facebook group and they can ask me a question and I can answer it. And a lot of times that's fine. That's enough, but it's a little limited. However, they can also hire me as a consultant. So I wanted you to know that that's a possibility. And again, the amount of grief that consultation or those consultations, it probably take more than one, but the amount of grief that prevents is so worth it. Okay. Um, I want to say one more thing, and because I want people to know where I'm coming from. I mean, I believe with my clients that I want to help them find what they really want and then get it. Doesn't mean I agree with everybody all the time, by the way. Um, but I do know that a lot of times kids are pressured into thinking that other people, doctors will tell them that it's about time you started you know having influence over what your parents should do. Marketers know that marketers of facilities know that it's much harder to convince the older person to come to their facilities than it is to convince their children to make the older people come to the facilities. They know that. So, of course, marketers put out a lot of information, propaganda, whatever you want to call it, to convince children that, it's time you took over your parents' lives. So a lot of these people, because I remember when my dad was living with me, as soon as he turned 85, and dad lived to be almost 93, in my home, he died in his bed in my home. So he was there with me the whole time. Um, I never went to the doctors with him. Now I'd go to the eye doctors with him because he had macular degeneration and they put shots in his eyes and he couldn't see. So I would obviously drive him there, but I'd sit in the waiting room. I didn't go in. If something needed to be talked about, I'd be there, but I had to be asked by my dad. Okay. And after he had his heart surgery and he went for the post-op consultation with the surgeon, every person on the earth, when they go for something like that, should have another person with them. I don't care how old you are, you should have somebody with you because you need somebody who's not as emotionally charged to hear what the other person is saying. So I went with him for that. But I never went to like his regular, just average doctor's appointments. And people would think, you don't? Of course not. You know what? you know, no, I don't. He's a grown up. He can go to his own doctor's appointments. So that's my belief. And I'm going to tell you, I've almost 45 years now, years of experience working with individuals and families. And I'm going to tell you, both my personal experience And my experience with working with families is they all do better when adults are treated like adults. Okay. So I'm going to recommend that you go click on, and I'm sure it might even be somewhere. That's kind of how you got to this video today. Some of you go to yourperfectretirementliving.com and learn more about the course, and go to the Facebook page once you've started the course. You can also go to Facebook Age Out Loud if you want to ask me about my family consultation services, because I'd be happy to talk to you about that. So anyway, but remember, and I'm going to go back to where I started, and when I say it this way, you all recognize that it sounds just a little bit silly. I'm resolute, you are stubborn, and that guy over there, he's just pig-headed. It's not true. Well, Greg, I've been talking. What do you have to say?
Yeah, no, that's great, Margo. So I just want to emphasize that the first thing that people get in the course is do your perfect day exercise, which really is a clarification of what your life would look like after you've moved, either stay in your home or pick someplace else to go. And so once you have that clarity of what you want, then you can look at the options. So that's a really good place to go.
I like
And
the way you said that, Greg, because I've never quite said it that way. I'm going to borrow that from you again. It's like when you do the your perfect day exercises, you get to see what your life would look like.
yeah.
I've never used that before, so thanks for that.
Yeah, for sure. So what you want to see and what you don't want to see.
Exactly.
So
And why you want to see it, and why you
yeah,
want it that way.
and why you want to see it. So maybe you don't want to have a yard and cut the lawn anymore. Maybe you do. So but it's everybody's different, and everybody has their own what they want, and as you say, it's personal choice and agency. So and the other thing you always say is knowledge is power. So the more you understand about your choices, the better choices you can make.
Yes.
Yeah. So
And
go
today, and unless with the rare exceptions of people who can't do it anymore, but that's rare.
Yeah.
The person who should make the decision is the person who's going to be living that decision.
Yeah, for sure. And do it together as a family, as you said.
And the family can help, but
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so that's all good. Reach out, go visit Your Perfect Retirement Living. Reach out to Margo on LinkedIn and Facebook and every place Margo is, and have a chat. And
But I just wanted to mention, I also have a YouTube channel. It's called Age Out Loud, and in there I have a playlist which is called "Just Because You're Old Doesn't Mean It's Dementia." There are 12 videos, and I need to add some more, by the way, because I've learned more things. But 12 different things. If your doctor, or if you have dementia symptoms, and that's all really dementia is a compilation of symptoms. If you have dementia symptoms, these are 12 things it could be that aren't dementia.
Right.
Where it can be fixed. So go look at that too, because that's real important.
Yeah, no, that's great. Okay. So again, learn about the program here at yourperfectretirementliving.com. Reach out to Margo. Go check out her YouTube videos.
Yes.
Check out you've got a few Facebook profiles and various things where people can find you. Mm-hmm. And let's get Your Perfect Retirement Living going.
Yes.
Happy Monday, everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody. We'll see you next week.